Good afternoon, grizzly bears. Welcome back. It has been a little over a week since my last stream. It's just been hard to find the time, but I'm very glad to be back at it. So, we have been reading the poems of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and we are continuing that today. Last time we finished an epic poem called The Saga of King Olaf, and then had time to read a few more smaller poems. So we're going to continue reading those smaller poems. And the first poem we have to read today is called The Wind Over the Chimney. See, the fire is sinking low, dusky red the embers glow, while above them still I cower, while a moment more I linger, though the clock with lifted finger points beyond the midnight hour. Sings the blackened log a tune, learned in some forgotten June, from a schoolboy at his play, when they both were young together. Heart of youth and summer weather, making all their holiday. And the night wind rising, hark, how above there in the dark, in the midnight and the snow, ever wilder, fiercer, grander, like the trumpets of Iskander, all the noisy chimneys blow. Every quivering tongue of flame seems to murmur some great name, seems to say to me, aspire. But the night wind answers, hollow are the visions that you follow. Into darkness sinks your fire. Then the flicker of the blaze gleams on volumes of old days, written by masters of the art, loud through whose majestic pages rolls the melody of ages, throb the heartstrings of the heart. And again, the tongues of flame start exulting and exclaim, these are prophets, bards, and seers in the horoscope of nations, like ascendant constellations. They control the coming years. But the night wind cries, despair. Those who walk with feet of air leave no long enduring marks. At God's forges incandescent, mighty hammers beat incessant. These are but the flying sparks. Dust are all the hands that wrought. Books are sepulchres of thought. The dead laurels of the dead rustle for a moment only, like the withered leaves in lonely churchyards at some passing tread. Suddenly, the flame sinks down, sink the rumors of renown, and alone the night wind drear clamors louder, wilder, vaguer. Is the brand of Meleager dying on the hearthstone here? And I answer, though it be, why should that discomfort me? No endeavor is in vain. Its reward is in the doing, and the rapture of pursuing is the prize the vanquished gain. That was The Wind Over the Chimney by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up we have a poem called Killed at the Ford. He is dead, the beautiful youth, the heart of honor, the tongue of truth. He, the light and life of us all, whose voice was blithe as a bugle call, whom all eyes followed with one consent, the cheer of whose laugh and whose pleasant word hushed all murmurs of discontent. Only last night, as we rode along down the dark of the mountain gap to visit the picket guard at the ford, little dreaming of any mishap, he was humming the words of some old song. 2 red roses he had on his cap, and another he bore at the point of his sword. Sudden and swift, a whistling ball came out of a wood, and the voice was still. Something I heard in the darkness fall, and for a moment my blood grew chill. I spake in a whisper, as he who speaks in a room where someone is lying dead. But he made no answer to what I said. We lifted him up to his saddle again, and through the mire and the mist and the rain carried him back to the silent camp, and laid him as if asleep on his bed. And I saw by the light of the surgeon's lamp 2 white roses upon his cheeks, and one just over his heart, blood red. And I saw in a vision how far and fleet that fatal bullet went speeding forth, till it reached a town in the distant north, till it reached a house in a sunny street, till it reached a heart that ceased to beat. Without a murmur, without a cry, and a bell was tolled in that far-off town, for one who had passed from cross to crown. And the neighbors wondered that she should die. That was Killed at the Ford by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up we have Giotto's Tower. How many lives made beautiful and sweet by self-devotion and by self-restraint, whose pleasure is to run without complaint on unknown errands of the Paraclete, wanting the reverence of unshodden feet, fail of the nimbus which the artists paint around the shining forehead of the saint, and are in their completeness incomplete. In the old Tuscan town stands Giotto's tower, the lily of Florence blossoming in stone, a vision, a delight, and a desire, the builder's perfect and centennial flower, that in the night of ages bloomed alone, but wanting still the glory of the spire. Tomorrow. 'Tis late at night, and in the realm of sleep my little lambs are folded like the flocks. From room to room I hear the wakeful clocks challenge the passing hour, like guards that keep their solitary watch on tower and steep. Far off I hear the crowing of the cocks, and through the opening door that time unlocks feel the fresh breathing of tomorrow creep. Tomorrow, the mysterious unknown guest who cries to me, remember Barmecide, and tremble to be happy with the rest. And I make answer, I am satisfied. I dare not ask, I know not what is best. God hath already said what shall betide. Next up, we have a long poem, looks like. Let me just see how long. Oh, not that long. Very doable. Only 6 parts. 6 stanzas, really. It is called Divina Commedia. Oft have I seen at some cathedral door a laborer, pausing in the dust and heat, lay down his burden and with reverent feet enter and cross himself, and on the floor kneel to repeat his paternoster o'er. Far off the noises of the world retreat, the loud vociferations of the street become an undistinguishable roar. So as I enter here from day to day, and leave my burden at this minster gate, kneeling in prayer and not ashamed to pray, the tumult of the time disconsolate to inarticulate murmurs dies away, while the eternal ages watch and wait. How strange the sculptures that adorn these towers. This crowd of statues in whose folded sleeves birds build their nests, while canopied with leaves, parvis and portal bloom like trellised bowers, and the vast minster seems a cross of flowers. But fiends and dragons on the gargoyled eaves watch the dead Christ between the living thieves, and underneath the traitor Jewess lowers. Ah, from what agonies of heart and brain, what exaltations trampling on despair, what tenderness, what tears, what hate of wrong, what passionate outcry of a soul in pain uprose this poem of the earth and air. this medieval miracle of a song. I enter, and I see thee in the gloom of the long aisles, O poet saturnine, and I strive to make my steps keep pace with thine. The air is filled with some unknown perfume. The congregation of the dead make room for thee to pass. The votive tapers shine like rooks that haunt Ravenna's groves of pine. The hovering echoes fly from tomb to tomb. From the confessionals I hear arise rehearsals of forgotten tragedies and lamentations from the crypts below, and then a voice celestial that begins with the pathetic words, although your sins as scarlet be, and ends with, as the snow. With snow-white veil and garments as of flame, she stands before thee who so long ago filled thy young heart with passion and the woe, from which thy song and all its splendors came. And while with stern rebuke she speaks thy name, the ice about thy heart melts as the snow on mountain height, and in swift overflow comes gushing from thy lips in sobs of shame. Thou makest full confession, and a gleam, as of the dawn on some dark forest cast, seems on thy lifted forehead to increase. Lethe and the remembered dream, and the forgotten sorrow, bring at last that perfect pardon, which is perfect peace. I lift mine eyes, and all the windows blaze with forms of saints and holy men who died, here martyred and hereafter glorified. And the great rose upon its leaves displays Christ's triumph and the angelic roundelays, with splendor upon splendor multiplied, and Beatrice again at Dante's side. No more rebukes, but smiles her words of praise, and then the organ sounds and unseen choirs sing the old Latin hymns of peace and love, and benedictions of the Holy Ghost. And the melodious bells among the spires, o'er all the housetops, and through heaven above, proclaim the elevation of the host. O star of morning and of liberty, O bringer of the light, whose splendor shines above the darkness of the Apennines, forerunner of the day that is to be, the voices of the city and the sea, the voices of the mountains and the pines, repeat thy song, till the familiar lines are footpaths for the thought of Italy. Thy fame is blown abroad from all the heights, through all the nations, and a sound is heard, as of a mighty wind, and men devout, strangers of Rome and the new proselytes, in their own language hear thy wondrous word, and many are amazed, and many doubt. That was Divina Commedia by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. One of his numerous poems with a religious theme. But it's also a very nice image that he paints there, independent of the religious message. The next poem in this collection is in French, and so I will skip it. And then we are on to a poem called Fata Morgana. Oh, sweet illusions of song that tempt me everywhere, in the lonely fields and the throng of the crowded thoroughfare. I approach, and ye vanish away. I grasp you, and ye are gone. But ever by night and day, the melody soundeth on. As the weary traveler sees, in desert or prairie vast, blue lakes overhung with trees that a pleasant shadow cast, fair towns with turrets high, and shining roofs of gold that vanish as he draws nigh, like mists together rolled. So I wander and wander along, and forever before me gleams the shining city of song in the beautiful land of dreams. But when I would enter the gate of that golden atmosphere, it is gone, and I wander and wait for the vision to reappear. The haunted chamber. Each heart has its haunted chamber, where the silent moonlight falls. On the floor are mysterious footsteps. There are whispers along the walls. And mine at times is haunted by phantoms of the past, as motionless as shadows by the silent moonlight cast. A form sits by the window that is not seen by day, for as soon as the dawn approaches, it vanishes away. It sits there in the moonlight, itself as pale and still, and points with its airy finger across the windowsill. Without before the window there stands a gloomy pine, whose boughs wave upward and downward, as wave these thoughts of mine. And underneath its branches is the grave of a little child who died upon life's threshold and never wept nor smiled. What are ye, O pallid phantoms, that haunt my troubled brain, that vanish when day approaches, and at night return again? What are ye, O pallid phantoms, but statues without breath, that stand on the bridge overarching the silent river of death? That was The Haunted Chamber by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up we have a poem called The Meeting. After so long an absence, at last we meet again. Does the meeting give us pleasure, or does it give us pain? The tree of life has been shaken, and but few of us linger now, like the prophet's 2 or 3 berries in the top of the uppermost bough. We cordially greet each other in the old familiar tone, and we think, though we do not say it, how old and gray he is grown. We speak of a Merry Christmas and many a Happy New Year, but each in his heart is thinking of those that are not here. We speak of friends and their fortunes, and of what they did and said, till the dead alone seem living, and the living alone seem dead. And at last we hardly distinguish between the ghosts and the guests, and a mist and shadow of sadness steals over our merriest jests. Next up we have Vox Populi. When Mazarvan, the magician, journeyed westward through Cathay, nothing heard he but the praises of Badura on his way. But the lessening rumor ended when he came to Caladan. There the folk were talking only of Prince Camaralzaman. So it happens with the poets. Every province hath its own. Camaralzaman is famous, where Badura is unknown. Next up we have The Castle Builder. A gentle boy with soft and silken locks, a dreamy boy with brown and tender eyes, a castle builder with his wooden blocks and towers that touch imaginary skies. A fearless rider on his father's knee, an eager listener unto stories told at the round table of the nursery, of heroes and adventures manifold. There will be other towers for thee to build. There will be other steeds for thee to ride. There will be other legends, and all filled with greater marvels and more glorified. Build on, and make thy castles high and fair, rising and reaching upward to the skies. Listen to the voices in the upper air, nor lose thy simple faith in mysteries. changed. From the outskirts of the town, where of old the milestone stood, now a stranger looking down, I behold the shadowy crown of the dark and haunted wood. Is it changed, or am I changed? Ah, the oaks are fresh and green, but the friends with whom I ranged through their thickets are estranged by the years that intervene. Bright as ever flows the sea, bright as ever shines the sun, but alas, they seem to me not the sun that used to be, not the tides that used to run. That's a nice little poem. That was Changed by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up we have The Challenge. This is a longer poem, so I'll take a quick break here to get some water. Alrighty. The Challenge. I have a vague remembrance of a story that is told in some ancient Spanish legend or chronicle of old. It was when brave King Sanchez was before Zamora slain, and his great besieging army lay encamped upon the plain. Don Diego de Ordóñez sallied forth in front of all, and shouted loud his challenge to the warders on the wall. All the people of Zamora, both the born and the unborn, as traitors did he challenge, with taunting words of scorn. The living in their houses, and in their graves the dead, and the waters of their rivers, and their wine and oil and bread. There is a greater army that besets us round with strife, a starving, numberless army at all the gates of life. The poverty-stricken millions who challenge our wine and bread, and impeach us all as traitors, both the living and the dead. And whenever I sit at banquet, where the feast and song are high, amid the mirth and the music, I can hear that fearful cry. And hollow and haggard faces look into the lighted hall, and wasted hands are extended to catch the crumbs that fall. For within there is light and plenty, and odors fill the air, but without there is cold and darkness, and hunger and despair. And there, in the camp of famine, in the wind and cold and rain, Christ, the great Lord of the army, lies dead upon the plain. That was Challenge by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up we have The Brook and the Wave. The brooklet came from the mountain, as sang the bard of old, running with feet of silver over the sands of gold. Far away in the briny ocean there rolled a turbulent wave. now singing along the sea beach, now howling along the cave. And the brooklet has found the billow, though they flowed so far apart, and has filled with its freshness and sweetness that turbulent, bitter heart. I like that one, I think. That was The Brook and the Wave. I really think Longfellow is at his best when he's not preaching something, as he so often is, but just painting a picture like that. Those are some of his best poems. Aftermath. When the summer fields are mown, when the birds are fledged and flown, and the dry leaves strew the path, with the falling of the snow, with the cawing of the crow, once again the fields we mow, and gather in the aftermath. Not the sweet new grass with flowers is this harvesting of ours, not the upland clover bloom, but the rowan mired with weeds, tangled tufts from marsh and meads, where the poppy drops its seeds in the silence and the gloom. Okay, next in this collection, we appear to be starting another long work, which is a poem called The Workshop of Hephaestus. And it has some poems in it, but it is not itself really a poem. It is a play. And honestly, it's just awkward to read a play as a single person and play all the parts yourself. So I'm going to skip it and move on to the next actual poem. Which, again, is a very long poem, but at least it's actually a poem. Let's see how long it is before I start it. 7 parts. Not too bad. It's called The Hanging of the Crane. The lights are out, and gone are all the guests. The thronging came with merriment and jests to celebrate the hanging of the crane. In the new house, into the night are gone, but still the fire upon the hearth burns on, and I alone remain. Oh fortunate, oh happy day, when a new household finds its place among the myriad homes of earth, like a new star just sprung to birth, and rolled on its harmonious way into the boundless realms of space. So said the guests in speech and song, as in the chimney burning bright, we hung the iron crane tonight, and merry was the feast. and long. And now I sit and muse on what may be, and in my vision see or seem to see, through floating vapors interfused with light, shapes indeterminate that gleam and fade, as shadows passing into deeper shade sink and elude the sight. For two alone there in the hall, as spread the table round and small, upon the polished silver shine the evening lamps, but more divine, the light of love shines over all. Of love that says not mine and thine, but ours, for ours is thine and mine. They want no guests to come between, their tender glances like a screen, and tell them tales of land and sea, and whatsoever may betide the great forgotten world outside. They want no guests. They needs must be each other's own best company. The picture fades as at a village fair, a showman's views dissolving into air, again appear transfigured on the screen. So in my fancy this, and now once more, in part transfigured through the open door, appears the selfsame scene. Seated, I see the two again, but not alone. They entertain a little angel unaware, with face as round as is the moon, a royal guest with flaxen hair, who, throned upon his lofty chair, drums on the table with his spoon, then drops it careless on the floor, to grasp at things unseen before. Are these celestial manners, these the ways that win, the arts that please? Ah, yes, consider well the guest, and whatsoe'er he does seems best. He ruleth by the right divine of helplessness so lately born, in purple chambers of the morn, as sovereign over thee and thine. He speaketh not, and yet there lies the conversation in his eyes, the golden silence of the Greek, the gravest wisdom of the wise, not spoken in language but in looks, more legible than printed books, as if he could but would not speak. And now, O monarch absolute, thy power is put to proof, for lo, resistless, fathomless and slow, the nurse comes rustling like the sea, and pushes back thy chair and thee. And so good night to King Canute. As one who walking in a forest sees a lovely landscape through the parted frieze, then sees it not for boughs that intervene, or as we see the moon sometimes revealed through drifting clouds and then again concealed, so I behold the scene. There are two guests at table now. The king, deposed and older grown, no longer occupies the throne. The crown is on his sister's brow, a princess from the fairy isles, the very pattern girl of girls, all covered and embowered in curls, rose-tinted from the Isle of Flowers, and sailing with soft silken sails from far-off dreamland into ours. Above their bowls, with rims of blue, four azure eyes of deeper hue are looking, dreamy with a delight, limpid as planets that emerge above the ocean's rounded verge, soft shining through the summer night. Steadfast they gaze, yet nothing see beyond the horizon of their bowls, nor care they for the world that rolls with all its freight of troubled souls into the days that are to be. Again, the tossing boughs shut out the scene. Again, the drifting vapors intervene, and the moon's pallid disk is hidden quite. And now I see the table wider grown, as round a pebble into water thrown dilates a ring of light. I see the table wider grown, I see it garlanded with guests, as if fair Ariadne's crown out of the sky had fallen down, maidens within whose tender breasts 1,000 restless hopes and fears, forth reaching into the coming years, flutter a while, then quiet lie, like timid birds that fain would fly, but do not dare to leave their nests, and youths who in their strength elate challenge the van in front of fate, eager as champions to be in the divine knight errantry of youth that travels sea and land, seeking adventures or pursues through cities and through solitudes, frequented by the lyric muse, the phantom with the beckoning hand that still allures and still eludes. O sweet illusions of the brain, O sudden thrills of fire and frost, the world is bright while ye remain, and dark and dead when ye are lost. The meadow brook that seemeth to stand still quickens its current as it nears the mill, and so the stream of time that lingereth in level places and so dull appears runs with a swifter current as it nears the gloomy mills of death. And now, like the magician's scroll that in the owner's keeping shrinks, with every wish he speaks or thinks, till the last wish consumes the whole, the table dwindles, and again I see the two alone remain. The crown of stars is broken in parts. Its jewels, brighter than the day, have one by one been stolen away to shine in other homes and hearts. One is a wanderer now afar, in Ceylon or in Zanzibar, or sunny regions of Cathay. And one is in the boisterous camp, mid clink of arms and horses' tramp, and battle's terrible array. I see the patient mother read, with aching heart, of wrecks that float, disabled on the seas remote, or of some great heroic deed on battlefields where thousands bleed to lift one hero into fame. Anxious, she bends her graceful head above these chronicles of pain, and trembles with a secret dread, lest there among the drowned or slain she find the one beloved name. After a day of cloud and wind and rain, sometimes the setting sun breaks out again, and touching all the darksome woods with light, smiles on the fields until they laugh and sing, then like a ruby from the horizon's ring, drops down into the night. What see I now? The night is fair, the storm of grief, the clouds of care, the wind, the rain have passed away. The lamps are lit, the fires burn bright, the house is full of life and light. It is the golden wedding day. The guests come thronging in once more. Quick footsteps sound along the floor. The trooping children crowd the stair, and in and out and everywhere flashes along the corridor the sunshine of their golden hair. On the round table in the hall, another Ariadne's crown out of the sky hath fallen down. More than one monarch of the moon is drumming with his silver spoon. The light of love shines over all. O fortunate, O happy day, the people sing, the people say, the ancient bridegroom and the bride, smiling, contented, and serene, upon the blithe, bewildering scene, behold, well pleased on every side, their forms and features multiplied, as the reflection of a light between two burnished mirrors gleams, or lamps upon a bridge at night, stretch on and on before the sight, till the long vista endless seems. I liked that one quite a lot. It was very long, but I think it was quite good. That was called The Hanging of the Crane by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It's a touching poem for an old papa bear like me. The next poem is another very long one, and I'm actually not convinced it's a poem at all. Is this a poem? It looks like prose. No, it's a poem. It is called Morituri Salutamus, poem for the 50th anniversary of the class of 1825 in Bowdoin College. So this appears to be a poem that he wrote for his own class reunion. And skimming over it, it looks probably not worth reading for the rest of us. I will make a note, come back and read it myself off stream, and decide whether it's worth it, but for now I'll skip it. And now we begin a book of sonnets. That's very encouraging. I like sonnets, usually. Not always, but usually. The first sonnet is called Three Friends of Mine. When I remember them, those friends of mine, who are no longer here, the noble three, who half my life were more than friends to me, and whose discourse was like a generous wine, I most of all remember the divine, something that shone in them and made us see the archetypal man and what might be the amplitude of nature's first design. In vain I stretch my hands to clasp their hands. I cannot find them. Nothing now is left but a majestic memory. They, meanwhile, wander together in Elysian lands, perchance remembering me who am bereft of their dear presence and, remembering, smile. In Attica, thy birthplace should have been, or the Ionian Isles, or where the seas encircle in their arms the Cyclades. So wholly Greek wast thou in thy Cyrene and childlike joy of life, O Philinine. Around thee would have swarmed the Attic bees. Homer had been thy friend, or Socrates, and Plato welcomed thee to his Demosthene. For thee old legends breathed historic breath. Thou sawest Poseidon in the purple sea, and in the sunset Jason's fleece of gold. Oh, what hadst thou to do with cruel death, who wast so full of life? Or death with thee, that thou shouldst die before thou hadst grown old? I stand again on the familiar shore and hear the waves of the distracted sea piteously calling and lamenting thee, and waiting restless at thy cottage door. The rocks, the seaweed on the ocean floor, the willows in the meadow, and the free, wild winds of the Atlantic welcome me. Then why shouldst thou be dead and come no more? Ah, why shouldst thou be dead when common men are busy with their trivial affairs, having and holding? Why, when thou hadst read nature's mysterious manuscript, and then wast ready to reveal the truth it bears, why art thou silent? Why shouldst thou be dead? River that stealest with such silent pace around the city of the dead, where lies a friend who bore thy name, and whom these eyes shall see no more in his accustomed place. Linger and fold him in thy soft embrace, and say good night, for now the western skies are red with sunset, and gray mists arise, like damps that gather on a dead man's face. Good night, as we so oft have said, beneath this roof at midnight in the days that are no more and shall no more return. Thou hast but taken thy lamp and gone to bed. I stay a little longer, as one stays, to cover up the embers that still burn. The doors are all open wide. At the gate, the blossomed lilacs counterfeit ablaze, and seem to warm the air. A dreamy haze hangs o'er the brightened meadows like a fate, and on their margin, with sea tides elate, the flooded Charles, as in the happier days, writes the last letter of his name and stays his restless steps, as if compelled to wait. I also wait, but they will come no more, those friends of mine whose presence satisfied the thirst and hunger of my heart. Ah me, they have forgotten the pathway to my door. Something is gone from nature since they died, and summer is not summer, nor can be. Okay. Unfortunately, that is all I have time for today. It will be at least a few days before I can stream again. And I do look forward to it. We will continue reading through these sonnets. I didn't so much love that first sonnet, actually, but I'm sure there are some good ones in here. Until then, I hope you have enjoyed your stay here. I hope you've found some relaxation and a sense of presence and calm. And I hope you can carry that with you through the rest of your day, or evening, or night, whatever it is for you. Until next time.